All right, so good afternoon, everyone. I realize the lunch session ran a little bit long, so we'll probably still have some people coming in to join us. Good afternoon, I'm Gina Sudan. I'm the president of the Wyoming County Chamber, and I'm just thrilled to be here. The Scranton Chamber does such an amazing job, and I was saying for the 9th year of this conference, so it's so amazing. The regional event and to see all these women gather together. I have the job of making sure that you know all the housekeeping rules. So things like silencing your cell phones, use the app to ask any questions. We do an interactive Q&A at the end as well, so we will save some time for that. This session is being recorded, so if you need to leave, try to move that way because the camera's right there. And then the exits, so they're behind you and to the left. Or your right, I guess, my left. And I have the pleasure of introducing Amanda Friday. She is with People's Security Bank, and they are our sponsors of the professional development track. So, Amanda.
Good afternoon. My name is Amanda Friday, and I'm the Assistant Vice President, Branch Manager of People's Security Bank and Trust in Manuka's office. The Empower Women's Conference strives to show that all women have the ability to create positive change in their local communities. As a community bank, we have a commitment to support local charities, nonprofits, and community events. Each year, People's Security Bank is proud to support the fantastic conference and sponsor this year's leadership track. I am pleased to introduce your speaker, Kathryn Bondi. Kathryn Bondi is the design manager at Posture Interactive, a creative agency in Scranton that focuses on website design and digital marketing. She has been building brands online with this group of incredibly creative minds for more than 7 years. Bondi was previously the creative director for the web team at NetDriven, an internet marketing company, where she mastered the art of making the tire industry look fun. Bondi is currently the Lieutenant Governor of the American Advertising Federation of NEPA District 2 Board. She previously served on the AAF of NEPA Board of Directors for 9 years. In addition, Bondi has been an adjunct instructor at Marywood University and the University of Scranton. Bondi has previously presented at TEDx Scranton, the Young Professionals Conference, and the Entrepreneurship Institute Conference. In her spare time, she makes her own cheese and buys homebrew beer with her husband. Let's welcome Kathryn.
Everyone always wants to know about the cheese. So thanks so much for having me today, everybody. I'm so excited to talk to you about what it means to rise like a phoenix. Was anyone like, what the hell does that mean? Like when they were trying to get interested in this session?
You're loud,
Kathryn,
Marcus.
can you turn your mic up?
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe a little bit closer.
And you chest back there.
Let me see.
Get it further. Is this better? Hello?
It's on the
It's
back.
me to be honest.
Sorry. I know, this is so awkward.
Take it in your right there.
I think we're
How about now?
Nailed it. First try.
Alright.
All right, how are we feeling about the slides? Are we good?
You just, yeah.
There it is. Okay. Now we're ready to start rising like a phoenix. That's something that I kind of was thinking about getting into this session. A lot of people today are talking about finding your purpose, right? How many people went to sessions where they talked about purpose? It's a big theme today. Geisinger was talking about it too. And I think that's really important to have a purpose and to really think about what your purpose is. But as you're figuring that out, there's also this idea of how you want to put yourself into the universe, right? Who's going to help you find that purpose, or who's going to be attracted to you and has a similar purpose? So one of the things I was thinking about kind of moving into this is kind of the idea of what the phoenix does, right? There's this whole idea of a phoenix in mythology. It kind of takes on new life by catching fire, rising from the ashes. Very fantastical, very cool. And it's something that we see a lot over and over in a lot of stories and culture and movies, right? And people are familiar with these two gals, yeah? So they have these whole stories of like catching fire and like rebirth and like this crazy moment of purpose happening. And I think that's really awesome. It's something that a lot of us can feel inspired by and latch onto. But it's also, they never had to do this. One of the things that I think about a lot is how can you leverage the world around you in digital media, social media, what we do at Posture every day, and use that to kind of bring your purpose into focus. And how do you want to take that next step in your career? How do you want to come back into the workforce? Maybe you've been away from the workforce. Maybe you're really young and you're just starting. And who knew that Daenerys Targaryen went to East Stroudsburg University? So I think that we've all heard these stories, right, where we have these women that are super powerful and have really carved their own path and they found their purpose. And a lot of times it happens later in life. It really is not too late to start whenever you're thinking about this journey of, I'm not happy with my position, or I'm not happy with how people are talking to me. And a lot of people got in these comments on Whova, so thank you for getting in there and kind of getting your thoughts together, because I think that gave me a really good picture of kind of the challenges that we're all facing. And honestly, everyone's saying this, kind of the same things. We're all facing the same frustrations, people not listening to us, doing too much work. We're doing way too many roles at our job and not being given enough credit for that. So these women were kind of in those same spots, right? And they just took that moment to say, what if I did it differently? What if I took a step outside and did something different? Vera Wang, I think, was a figure skater, and when she was like, actually, I want to do fashion. Kris Jenner was like, not really doing much of anything, was like, you know what? I'm going to capitalize on what's happening in this industry in this moment. So there's a lot of different ways that these women were thinking, I could flip the script and kind of turn my story around if I just rebrand myself a little bit. So a lot of people kind of ask when they get to that point, okay, how can I quit my job, become social media, internet famous, whatever you want to call it. And that's not really something that can happen overnight, right? It's not something that we all necessarily want. It would be an easy path, sure. You know, you post one video online of whatever and it goes viral and you get sponsors and everybody wants to be a part of your story. But that's not always the case. That's not always the path that's going to be the best for us, maybe, for our purpose. A lot of people think that that's what this involves, is, you know, doing these crazy dance videos and doing all this content that doesn't really have much content to it, right? And actually the teen session this morning, we talked about this a lot, and just how the content is, like Dr. Lauren said, there's a lot of noise, right? There's a lot of stuff out there that's just, you know, it's people trying to post and get sponsors and get noticed and get viral, and a lot of that really doesn't have a purpose behind it, and it's really kind of like drinking from a fire hose, right? Every time you turn on a social media app. So how do you cut through that noise? And one of the things that I've learned throughout my life, really, is you start with finding your challengers. This is something that I have taken from a previous role and kind of seen it really in first person at an actual job role, but it also happens online too. Digitally, you can find your challengers. How many people have experienced somebody at work that just like really pushes back on that? Like, no matter what you do, what you try and get accomplished, they are just like coming down hard on you. Has anyone ever experienced that? Yeah? I definitely have. And it seems to happen more to us as women, right? It's just people don't take you seriously. People don't want to hear what you have to say. And I personally, a story that I have with this is when I was at NetDriven, so this was in the lovely bio that she read, was making the tire and automotive industry sound really cool. That was that job. So I relate to Patrice on that level. I actually did learn a lot about all the services to do with my car, how to change my tires, how to look at radials, and how to make sure that I'm getting the right replacement tires. It was a whole world. But outside of that, I had a lot of trouble in that industry because it was very male-dominated. Even at an internet marketing company, I was pretty much the only woman in the room in a lot of discussions. And I remember when I first took over the director role there, I had this guy, Keith, and I'm using his name because we're very dear friends now. And he was like, just every time I would try and be like moving a little bit forward, move the team forward, and he was like not having it. He thought I was undermining him. He thought, you know, he's been there longer, how could I be the director of the web team and he didn't get that role, and why should he listen to me? And eventually I just took him aside, and I just was like, hey Keith, can you just like go to the side and have some breakout time here? Like, we need to figure this out because you are not only causing issues for the rest of the team, but you're not letting me help. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm not here to like tell you what to do. I'm here to help you get to where you want to be. That's the whole idea behind leadership and behind wanting to be a leader on a team. And he was like, oh, I didn't really like think about it that way. I was like, dude, you have been here longer than me. You know a lot more than I do, and I am leaning on you to help me kind of guide the team to where we should be. And once he kind of like saw it in that new light, he was probably one of my biggest supporters. And honestly, we're, like I said, we're really good friends now. And it just took having that conversation of just sitting down, taking them aside. It doesn't have to be a public conversation, and just saying, hey, what can I do to help move this forward? Why are we fighting each other? Why do we keep knocking against each other when we're trying to move forward? And I like this whole idea of you finding your challenger, because I feel like people use the word mentor a lot, and mentorship and mentoring. And I think mentoring is important. I think there's really a lot of good things that can happen with mentoring. But I also think mentors are too nice. I feel like they'll always just be like, yeah, you're doing great, and just keep at it, girl. And I feel like mentors don't really get that pushing you out of your comfort zone, right? Like you need somebody that's going to challenge you and get you to that next step. So that's where I feel that mentors are not really where I find my best moments. It's really those challengers where I had to come up against that challenge and have a moment. And I think every time I found that moment of like catapulting to the next step in my life, it's because someone was really trying to challenge me in some sort of way. We're going to skip through these because they're not working. But following and engaging the competition is something that a lot of people do, and we actually do this in a marketing agency when we're working with brands. And it's basically competitive research, right? You're kind of looking and seeing what are other people doing. So say you're in a current career that you're maybe not happy with, or maybe a role you're not happy with in your career, and you're trying to think, how can I get to that next level? How can I kind of figure out what my next step is? And really looking at the competition is a great way to do that. Start following people, start studying them, start just doing the competitor research. And we'll do this with brands all the time, where we're like, okay, so what are like popular brands that do this exact same service or product doing, and how can we make it even better? And that's what your job really to do here, to kind of get yourself into that next level, is look at what people are doing. And there's a lot of great tools on social media in general that I think people don't always take advantage of, don't always know about. So, for instance, we talk a lot about keywords. Is anyone familiar with like SEO, search engine optimization? Okay, yeah, little tiny bit. SEO basically refers to how we kind of game the internet, how we look at search engines, and how we can kind of get websites and different brands and things trending. And you can use these same kind of tactics when you're doing your own research and kind of seeing how you can get yourself out there more and look at your competition. So in this instance, like I'm using the hashtag hotel and kind of looking up like what's out there for hotel, hotel rooms, hotel California, and kind of just, you could start filling in a little bit more detail. So and then just kind of figuring out like, what am I looking for in terms of what's trending? So when you start searching for these trending terms and hashtags and things like that, then it starts bringing up related videos, maybe the really top influencers in that area, top information that people are posting as video sources. So you can kind of start using this as a research tool before you even get to Googling things. Social media actually is a really great research tool to see who is out there and who is leading the industry. Even LinkedIn has very similar search features where you can kind of search different industries that are posted in there, whether they're, one of the ones I know I always follow is like Virgin Industries, like that, what they're doing and what they're investing in. And it's just really cool to see how that discussion is forming and kind of where you can go from there. Also, I think people don't take advantage of a lot of following and commenting on people. So once you find these people, you're like, wow, like I follow a whole bunch of designers on Instagram. That's kind of like what my feed has kind of become, is like, ooh, what's this person designing? Or what is this poster that's being put together? And how did they get to that point? Like I love dissecting people's processes. And when you follow them and you kind of get into that idea of like, wow, they're doing something really cool, reach out. Like Dr. Lawrence said, you never know until you just ask the questions if they're going to say yes or no, or invite you into a conversation, maybe meet up for coffee. You never know. And I feel like I've actually had a lot of instances there, whether I'm reaching out to people myself and kind of just trying to feel it out and say, like, how did you get to where you are currently in your design industry or whatever the industry is that you're looking to get into? And then also kind of having people come back to me. That was something that we talked about in the session earlier today with the teens, is like LinkedIn is a completely untapped resource in this sense of trying to bounce ideas off of people, right? You can directly message people that are presidents and CEOs of huge companies, and you'd be surprised how many people will take the time to respond to you. Even if you're like, hey, can we just do like a quick Zoom session or a virtual meetup, or if you want to go, if they're local, you want to go for coffee. People really do engage on a level when you directly message them that it does kind of help cut through all the noise on the feed and everything like that. You also kind of have to remember that you are your brand. And this is something that I definitely struggle with too, as I have multiple different personas, I feel like, depending upon what app I'm on. Like there's, Facebook is where like my friends and family are, and then Instagram's where I'm doing my research and industry things, and then LinkedIn, I'm just strictly like Kat, the public speaker, and like professor. And then when we moved into TikTok, I'm like a cat influencer, so that's like, I don't even want to talk about that. But go follow him, he's great. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of try and figure out how your personal brand is getting out there. And this is actually a concept that I learned many moons ago. If anyone's familiar with Jim Collins' Good to Great, this is a concept he talks about called hedgehog concept, where this little tiny hedgehog just knows like he's good at one thing and he's going to do that one thing really, really well, versus all these other animals in the forest are like trying these different tactics, and the fox is being foxy and trying always to get him in different ways. But it really comes down to three intersecting things that have to do with what are you passionate about, what do you know you're really good at, and what drives your economic engine, or how are you going to make money. So I kind of took that and like retooled it a little bit. So this is how I kind of do my personal branding concept. So we're thinking about what are we passionate about. So things that I really like doing, I like making websites, I like being a designer, I like helping people. That's like Dr. Lauren said, your values, right? Things that matter to you. Versus what am I good at? Things that I'm organized. I really like being creative. I like technology. I like branding. I like cheese. And what are my personal drivers? So the things that I know I need in order to feel like I'm doing something effective in my job. So this is not necessarily like we're finding our purpose, but making sure that we're finding a position or a way to approach our career calling that's going to keep us feeling like we can come back every day. So I know that I need work-life balance. A lot of people mention that coming into this session. Work-life balance is very important. But I know I want to feel fulfilled. I don't think I could just sit and crunch numbers all day. That's just not the kind of person I am. I need to talk to people. I need to be in the room with people. I need to feel like I can lead people on a team. And then at the end of the day, yeah, I got to make money. Like that definitely is still part of it, right? So how do we get all of those things out of what our position is? So I really liked this quote that I came across the other week that kind of revolves around authenticity. We talk about authenticity a lot in branding and social media because when people feel like they're being sold to, what's the first thing you do when you see an ad on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook? Swipe up. Swipe up right away. No one likes feeling sold to. And authenticity goes such a long way because of that. So whether, authenticity, transparency, and a willingness to engage in dialogue, that is very important, being able to actually have a dialogue with people and not just kind of scrolling through the pages, is really crucial for building breakthrough brands today. So when you think about your personal brand, think about how you're telling your authentic story to other people. Whether you're on LinkedIn kind of giving updates on what you're doing in your career, or whether you're in the office and telling people why you deserve to be paid more for the job that you're doing. Your personal brand story can be authentic and very important. So again, we just feel like we get sold a lot too on social media, and there's always this idea of like, oh my God, their life is so perfect and everything's great, but then like behind the scenes, it's like really false. So this is where we get into the idea of it's really never too late for a rebrand. There's so many things that you can do within social media that is a really powerful tool when you're using your authentic voice. I love this chart, and I'll leave this up for a while because I feel like people love taking pictures of this chart. But this is really a great cross-section of what people are looking for and how they're consuming content on different social media platforms. So when we're thinking about Facebook, being the top platform still, believe it or not, it is. Someone asked in the other session, is Facebook still cool? And I was like, it's not cool, but it's definitely still got a purpose. It's definitely doing really good for local marketing, local search, events, small businesses. All of those things still do really great on Facebook. The one that gets overlooked a lot, actually, is YouTube. That's still a really big platform, especially for content creators and people that are trying to get out there and do instructional videos, education. So that's where, if we're going to talk later about kind of education side of things, you're still going to find a lot of great content on there versus the more short-form content on Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat and things like that. But I think one of the things that also gets overlooked here is that long-form content on LinkedIn does really well. So if you're somebody that's really into writing, or if you've published articles, or you've done blog pieces, that's a really great platform to get that content out there and kind of get yourself more noticed for that kind of content as well. So things to think about as you kind of move through your self-branding and how you're talking about yourself. Good example, this is one of my friends that I went to college with. And she was, I guess she started as graphic design and architecture, and then she moved into photography kind of on her own. And she was thinking like, I guess I'll just kind of start doing like wedding photography, go to like California, whatever. But she's so good at leveraging these different platforms that it like blows my mind. So she started an Instagram because photos, Instagram, but she also started that on the right-hand side, that's a Pinterest account. So when you find out you're getting married, what's the first thing that you do? You do a Pinterest board and start putting all your ideas in there. And she is doing so well with that. She has catapulted herself into being like, she's in like The Knot and like all these crazy big things, just because she has created this following on Pinterest of all things, which now is becoming so monetized, it's crazy. Like everything on Pinterest is an ad that you can add to your pin board. But just creating this whole lifestyle look with her photography, people are like, oh yeah, I do want to do an elopement in Big Sur, so I'm going to put that on my board. Oh wow, she actually is the photographer that did that. I'm going to go see if I can hire her. So it's just bringing her all this business because she's leveraging the platform in a really smart way. Another one that I really love seeing, and some people over here, I think, know her. So Melissa is someone that I previously worked with too, one of my friends, and she is kind of took this graphic design position and just said, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to work as a designer for a tire automotive company, and I want to kind of do my own thing. I want to be like traveling the world and being a design contractor and kind of just like doing whatever I want. And she took that story and rebranded herself on her social platforms. So her Instagram has kind of this idea of, you know, she's traveling and she'll do whatever and she's fully remote, but she can meet with you whenever, and creating this whole idea of empowerment with girls that do web design and code, like the geekgirl.com. She has like geek meetups and things like that. So she's building her community. She's finding her tribe, right? She probably found her challengers too online at some point. And she also is creating, there's that work, play, live journal. She kind of created this journal based off of her experience. So everything here is very consumable for people because it's authentic. It's her experience. She's just telling her story. She's not trying hard to sell to anybody. She's just saying, I love doing design contracting now. I'm out there traveling the world, but I get to do it. And by the way, I made a book about it that you can also buy and do your own journaling. So a lot of people, I like this slide because I feel like I relate to it really hard. How many people are posting their own content maybe like once a day or once a week, but you're actually posting on your feed? How many people are scrolling on their feed until they can't hold their phone anymore and it hits them in the face? Yeah. So I'm definitely in that bottom percent too. And every once in a while I'll post something and I like kind of experimenting with it and seeing like, oh, if I post a question, like what's the best hoagie in Scranton? And everyone like dog piles on. And you'd be surprised how many people are really waiting for that content. They're waiting for something to engage with. They're all lurking and they're not really posting things. So whether you believe it or not, yeah, a lot of the content on there right now is paid content. You're seeing a lot of ads, you're seeing a lot of probably content from stories and pages that you follow. But there's not a lot of content out there that people are actually posting and getting in on a conversation. So how do you inspire that conversation? There's a couple ways you can do that. I always look to the big brands. They always have really great ideas on how to do that. So here's just a couple of examples, but they are really great at kind of doing this like call and response. Like, you know, like when someone's like, Day-o, and you like want to be like, Day-o. That's kind of like how social media has formed this, like going back to conversation and asking questions. People just want to answer it. And we've seen like some posts that are kind of definitely more on the like trash side of this, but when a brand can ask a question that really relates to what they do, and if you can ask a question that really relates to what you're trying to bring in as your purpose and kind of where you want to go with your career, it can create some really good conversations and really get you noticed by the people that will bring you to that next step. So I'll go back to my friend Melissa with a really good example of this. She recently posted this and I was like, oh wow, I got to the end of it and I was just like, that is like such an authentic story. So she had authenticity, she told her story, she's being very real. She's saying that she wasn't really planning on talking about this, but she decided she had to get a part-time job to kind of fill the gaps between her contract work. And she was being so incredibly honest with this story, like the reactions were like off the charts. So there was like 17 comments, she had like a whole bunch of different people like resharing it, and like, I've never seen this many people engage with a post with one of my friends on LinkedIn in my life. Usually it's like, thumbs up, congrats on the new position. So I thought this was super cool that she was able to kind of create that conversation around, this is what I'm doing now. And if you're on board with me and you want to share this journey with me, become part of the conversation, become part of what I'm doing. And it's easier to do that than you think if you're just creating that idea of telling your authentic story and not trying to sell people things. I love this chart because as much as I hate the icons on it, I feel like it is a good way to kind of look at how people consume content. So thinking about how we encounter brand advertising and how people, starting at the very tippy top corner of that where you're like, scroll, don't want to watch it, don't want to hear it, versus as we get down to like that kind of bottom quadrant there of making something a little more interesting with research, guiding, webinars. So things to think about as you're trying to go through this journey. If you want to create yourself this kind of authentic story, can you post your story in a way that people are going to resonate? Can you create like a guide or a how-to video? Can you do a webinar? Can you post some FAQs about what people may have questions about in your field? And you'd be surprised how many people kind of resonate with that stuff because they don't get to see that kind of content very often anymore. We're still just being assaulted constantly with this onslaught of paid advertising. One of the things that I also really like is asking why. So there have been many times where I've been in a room with many people and kind of been afraid to speak up. And one of the things that I always come back to is asking the question, why? So when I ask what, it sounds like I wasn't paying attention. When I say how, it sounds like I'm stupid because I don't understand how something works. If I say who, it sounds like I wasn't also like not enough in the room to know who is important. And if I say why though, why tends to get people thinking, oh, wow, she's really invested in this conversation, or she really wants to dig deeper, or she wants to know more. And I found that this question can really go a long way. Even when you're kind of feeling afraid of jumping into a conversation, just asking why in the room gets you a lot more mileage and gets a lot more people to pay attention to you. So since we're all feeling a little sleepy, and we all had our lunch, and then it was like dark, and now we're like trying to stay awake, we're gonna do a little activity where I want you to stand up, yep, let's get up. And everyone, most people have really great responses here of something that they're being challenged with in their current role right now. A lot of people said things like time management, not being taken seriously. There's some really great things. So now that you're standing and getting some blood flowing, I want you to turn to somebody to your side and tell them one of those things. You already thought about it, so you already know your thing. And I want you to go through these whys. So as you're talking to the person next to you, go through these whys and say, why do you dislike this thing that's happening to you right now? Wrap up our whys over here. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, everybody. So what did we learn? What came out of these discussions of asking, I'll go back, the asking the why, like why do you dislike it versus why is it currently part of even your job role if it's something that's really pissing you off, versus why are you accepting of this? And why is it not being done differently? And why is improving this task important to you? These were all things that kind of get you to kind of remove some of your bias and kind of like, well, I just can't. I think asking why, and we've done this even with certain challenges that we have with branding with some of our clients in the advertising industry is, well, why can't we? Why can't we just reapproach this in a totally different way? Did anyone have any like aha moments of like, oh, I never thought about this problem that way, or wow, someone else is dealing with this and now we can commiserate. Yeah. And I do have a QR code here to scan a downloadable version of this exercise if you're interested. It's a little worksheet that also kind of goes more in depth in kind of asking not only why, but kind of going through some of these other things we talked about of identifying who your challengers are and kind of working through some of those things. You know, what is your personal brand? What are some of the things that you find to be valuable or what you're passionate about? So you can download that and definitely do that if you'd like to take that with you. How many people can relate to this list of all the things that you are, all the things you do way too much of all the time? That is one of the downfall, right, of being a woman that is also in the job force, and why it took so long to get women in the job force is we're doing so many other things. We're students, we're managers, we're chefs for our children or for other people. And we're entrepreneurs, we're starting businesses on the side, we're studying, we're doing caretaking, maybe working with musicians. But at the end of the day, we're all women, and that's hard enough in itself. I think this is a really great example looking at Melinda Gates. So on her LinkedIn profile, she has that she is the co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the founder of Pivotal Ventures, the author of The Moment of Lift. She's got a couple of different titles, right? Now let's look at Bill. She's got one, right? He doesn't need to be anything else. He's Bill freaking Gates. But it's kind of like a what the fuck moment, right? Like, why do we have to do so many different things to feel like we're enough? And then, someone else can just, yeah, that's what I do. That's my one thing. It's cool. So I think one of the things that I always come back to, and I think is really hard to remember, is we are not defined by our 9 to 5. And I think that's a lot of what I think Dr. Laura was even kind of getting at of your purpose and taking care of yourself. But what are the other things that you're doing that really can help fulfill you outside of this, but also help you be better at your job? As women, we're really good multitaskers and we're really good organizers, and we have these great organizational brains because we've learned how to do all these things simultaneously. So there are a lot of things that kind of feed into, maybe it does make you a good strategist because you're used to being a diplomat when your kids are fighting. Or maybe you're a good writer because you're used to doing social media posts for your friend's bakery, and actually you could probably do that full time. You've gotten really good at it. So don't forget about those parts of your story. This is something that we call being a slasher, where you're like this, slash that. Not that kind of slasher. But every part of that story is still something really important to your journey and how you can market yourself. This is something that is kind of new in the industry of like gig economy and like, oh yeah, I also like drive for Instacart at night. It's not quite that. It's really thinking about how all these different pieces of what you do throughout outside of your career can really inform how much better you are at your role, or for the next role even. So this is a quote I really liked with Brad White from 47 Samurai's creative agency. He says, we want to surround ourselves with people who are curious about life and can manage their time well, and it shows us that they have really strong time management skills and have a greater output when given the same amount of input as other team members. How many people have had that feeling where you're like, I definitely did like the same amount of work as this other person in like half the time? Yeah. This is something that we see a lot in creative agencies in particular. So I like to say that every creative agency needs a Jamie. And I won't call Jamie out so she doesn't have to stand up, but she is in this room. So this is Jamie. There she is. So I'm using Jamie as an example because I'm self-deprecating and don't like using myself as an example, but I think she has a really awesome slasher story. So she went to school for English. Cool, she's really great at English. She really can do great writing, she has great grammatical skills and proofreading, but then she also worked at a video production company and learned to operate a camera. And she started learning about editing and video production. And that was not something she went to school for. She just picked it up and started doing it on the job. Then she also started making paper sculptures and became internet famous for that. So yes, she did do the internet famous thing. And then she also honed her photography skills with her Insta-famous pug. If you haven't followed him, he's wonderful, Polly the Pug on Instagram. And now she's a production manager with a really intense eye for detail, impeccable spelling and grammar, and a real good knack for knack for intricate set designs. So all of these different experiences, even though they weren't directly correlating to her job or related to her job in any way, they're really building up who she is as a person / producer / writer / social media coordinator. And it's important to remember that those things are all still really important. You don't have to discount them. So that's where we get to welcome to Internet University. So a lot of people have mentioned maybe they're transitioning roles or they're trying to get back into a new role, and you really have the internet at your fingertips. And sometimes it's just really intimidating to know where to start, where to take that next step. I love the idea of doing free trainings. There's a lot of free trainings out there. These ones in particular are really good ones. Meta has a whole bunch of free trainings that you can do, so you can get Meta certified. HubSpot Academy, you can do social media certifications. YouTube, Google has a whole bunch of certifications you can do. You can get certified in Google Analytics, AdWords, you can do ad placement with Google. And then the one at the top there is MailChimp, so it's email marketing certification. So these ones are all tangential to the marketing industry, but if you just do one of these free training courses and throw that on your resume, because you totally can, that becomes, oh wow, you're more relevant now. That's another part of your story. You're still staying into your industry or just being aware of what's happening in the digital world. Because I guarantee you at some point somebody's gonna be like, oh wow, you know how to do that thing? I thought that's like what Gen Z kids did. So it does make you a lot more marketable. I also love that Google is even kind of using this as a sense of kind of creating like a new career. They're actually literally marketing it to be like, come to Google, take a certification, like a free training course, and you could actually just get a new job as a project manager. Like we're basically guaranteeing that we're gonna give you the skills in this course to do a career change if that's something that you're looking for. So I think that's really cool, and honestly, they're not paying me anything, but I've just always been a big advocate of doing free trainings. And they have probably the biggest library of free trainings. So whether you're getting a certificate, but a lot of these like Fortune 500 companies even are hiring people that have Google certifications. So people do look for that, whether you're in the creative industry or not. It is something that can be really helpful. So we could give Danny that little Google certified badge on her little LinkedIn profile. Another great resource, these guys are not free per se, but they are really good resources and I've used them many times. Skillshare is actually a really great one. Code Academy I relied on a lot. When I first started working at an internet marketing company, and I was like, no one taught me how to do this in school. I used Code Academy a lot actually when I was trying to figure out HTML, CSS, all that stuff. And like Patrice was saying, like sometimes you just gotta get down and learn. If you're like, wow, there's a lot of guys in this field and I really don't know if I could, trust myself to learn enough and sound smart. There's so many resources out there that you can train yourself and kind of get a little more comfortable, get your feet wet, and figure out if this really is something that you want to get into or can help add to your career. AI is also a really great resource. How many people have used ChatGPT? How many people have used it to organize your day and your groceries? So ChatGPT actually is kind of sneaky that way, in that people are like, oh yeah, people use it to like write their papers for school or maybe to do like posts for social media. But there's a lot of AI features out there now, not just ChatGPT, but even in general. We have more kind of smart learning that they've done in terms of creating organized lists. So there's one that we actually use, some people that I work with in this room use called Otterbot. So that's a form of AI where basically, if anyone's seen this on like a Zoom call or something, oh, Otterbot has entered the chat. It's an AI that's taking in people's audio and then making notes as the meeting is happening and then summarizing those notes and then the key takeaways from those notes. Can you imagine like not having to take notes during a meeting? And it's not 100%, but it's still pretty close. ChatGPT kind of has the same thing where, so in this example, I'm sorry, it's probably really small for the people in the back, but I basically just asked it, okay, can you help me write a social post promoting a new training course that I'm offering for a paid subscription? And ChatGPT said, of course, I'll help you with that. And it created little emojis and little suggestions, and that's great, and that's not necessarily my tone of voice that I would write, but it gives me a starting point, and I can at least use that as something to build on. So then I took it to the next step and I said, okay, thank you, ChatGPT, but also, can you help me write a script to introduce my training course to people that I'm going to start offering? And of course, absolutely. So then it started writing like directions for an actual scene. Opening shot, background music starts playing. It's getting into stage directions, who's talking. I don't know how to write scripts, but this guy does. So I'm leaning on this to kind of fake it till I make it, right? If you don't know how to do something, find someone that will help you get there. And ChatGPT is a powerful tool for that if you can start leveraging the pieces of it a little bit more. So it even gets into the voiceover, are you ready to take your skills to the next level? It goes all the way. And I'm like, great, got it. I have my post content, I have my video planned. Now can you tell me how I'm gonna get it out there? So, maybe I don't have marketing training. Maybe I'm not somebody that has any marketing background. And I said, can you come up with a launch schedule to announce my new program by next month? So ChatGPT goes and starts doing it day by day, week by week. Here are the steps that you can take to start marketing your platform, how to start getting it out to people, how you can talk about it. And again, it's not foolproof. It's suggestions based on what it has found on the web, but it's something. And I don't have to hire another marketing person. I don't have to go through a training class. I'm relying on AI to help me get there faster. And that's really the true power in a lot of these AI tools that people are using. And if you just experiment with it a little bit, and then go into that next role saying, oh, I know AI, I know ChatGPT, someone goes, oh wow, okay, you're a lot more attractive than the other candidate we were looking at. They didn't know anything about AI. Another thing that I actually have learned to embrace as a designer, because I generally am like, oh, I know design, because I'm a designer and no one else does. And then Canva came out and I was like, oh, okay, Canva's really great actually, because it allows everyone to have access to design. How many people in here are Canva users or have downloaded it? Yeah. I have fully embraced Canva. I think it's a great tool, whether it's for myself or for clients, where we'll build templates in there and give them out to them. But it's a really great way to even make whatever you have look more professional. So if you have a resume, put it in Canva and do a template in there and make it look branded. If you have a video series, market it with a Canva video or a template that you've created in there to talk about it. They have beautiful templates, and most of them are free. Pretty much everything in Canva is at some base level free, and then they try and upsell you on the premium features. But they still have these fun little animations and stickers and things. They have mock-ups that you can use to kind of make like realistic looking mock-ups of devices and things like that. You can do, say you are going to do a training course like my ChatGPT got me to put together, and I was going to market that to people. I can have Canva help me decide what these videos to promote it will look like, or what the training course little takeaways would look like. So many resources, and it's really just there ready to be used. So I do have QR codes here to download Canva if you're interested and you want to start creating. I would definitely encourage you to check it out and kind of play around with it. But I think really the big overall theme here is, regardless of what your tools are in your toolbox, there always is another way to kind of kickstart yourself to that next step, right? So whether you're asking why, getting in the room, or whether you're just trying to find that next open training course to get you there, there are a lot of great tools online that you can take advantage of, and don't be afraid to just take that next step. Thank you.
My job is paying attention to what's happening.
I know, so I was like,
oh wait, I'm supposed to be getting it wrong. Are there any questions? I know we have to get to our next session, but we typically have a few minutes in between. So are there questions for Kathryn? Over here.
Yes.
You want to take a
Here, have a-
shape? There's a microphone there. It's in the video. Here, shoot.
So the topic is rebranding yourself, and a lot of us have existing LinkedIn socials, and they don't have views, they're not going anywhere. Do you really just start over, or do you just reprofile yourself? I know this is a really big question.
Oh, no.
But I am curious about, if you want to turn something into another direction, do you just do a whole other profile and start all over, or can you really turn your own following around?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it depends on what platform we're talking about. So LinkedIn, for instance, like you are yourself, you are your brand on LinkedIn. And I think it'd be kind of weird to ditch that profile and create a totally new one. I think people would be like, oh, what happened?
More like Insta and TikTok.
Yeah, Insta and TikTok definitely would be maybe you want to consider creating a new account. But I think it also is worth noting that you do have some sort of following there, and if you pivot, you at least get to keep that following from that journey to your next one. I've seen this actually happen a lot in businesses. So say a restaurant closes in one location and opens somewhere else as a totally new business, they'll actually just change the name of their page. So they still have all those followers that are like, oh, well, we knew you as that, but now we know you as this, so we'll go check that out. So you at least you don't start from square one, you at least get a little bit of that following still kind of tuning into what you're saying. So I wouldn't discount it entirely, but if you really need to go scorched earth and be like, no, this is a totally different direction, then yeah, maybe you can think about making a new profile. Good question.
Great. Any other questions for Kathleen? Again, let's give her another round of applause. It was a really great presentation.